Good morning, my name is Dave Blackwell, and part of Tomiko's requirements were that we have security. Since the system is open to the internet between the warehouse and the DMZ server, we installed a VPN tunnel to be able to provide a secured PP-TP tunnel so that we can minimize any type of intrusion from the internet. We did this by configuring both servers for VPN and then installing a demand dial interface to create the VPN tunnel.
Just quickly on our Dave, actually, do you want to cover the web and mail
Sure.
servers first and hold it faster?
Also, on the same server, the DMZ server, which was a screen subnet, we had a mail and web servers which provided external clients with resources to our website. They were able to access email, able to access web applications so they can see products, things of that nature. We had two different IP addresses, one for the mail server, one for the web server. And all of these were located on the DMZ server.
Quickly on the file server, Dan's going to cover a little more on this. We did create a file server for shared resources. Well, I guess Dan is now going to talk about the HR requirements.
Part of the requirements for this project was that HR needed to have a designated folder to contain the HR handbook and also a suggestion box. Now, we said that, of course, we're going to set the designated folder so that it's read-only and the suggestion box so that it's write-only, so that you can't read other people's suggestions. This all tied in with the requirement that all departments have their own 20 gigabyte dedicated folder on the file server that only those departments could access. Those departments, of course, are to be given full access, full control over their own departmental folders, but none others. Now, executives, just as a little side note, executives were granted read-only access to those folders so that they could not go in and change anything. We also needed on the file server to have a 650 megabyte home directory, for each user, so that whenever they sign onto their accounts out at their desks, they have a mapped link to their own personal 650 megabyte folder on the file server that only they can access, well, they and IT. Put that under Drive Z, and we also were to point the My Documents folder to that, so that anything they put in their My Documents folder would automatically get routed over to their own personal directory. Josh?
Covered printers just a little bit, but the requirements stated that there were to be 2 printers on each floor, and there was one in the warehouse. Now, since each one of these floors is on a different subnet, we installed 2 printers on each subnet, and then each printer was only visible to users on that subnet. And each one of the printers were published into Active Directory, so in fact, all users could have access to all printers. In addition to that, we included the print drivers on the print server so that we could install printers remotely.
Group policy. After all this was done, we came around to setting group policy for all the users that had been entered into Active Directory. One of the requirements were they needed to only be able to log on at certain times. Now, all users were given, we went in and set all users to they could only log on to their accounts between 8 and 6. Of course, support, because they needed extended hours, were set between 4 and 10, and executives and managers they got remote access 24 hours a day so they could get in. The only oddball was the sales staff between 6 and 12. They were given remote access to the sales share folder only, so it was a little more restrictive there. Permissions, yes. We needed to restrict the control panel. The Windows control panel needed to be restricted so that only the IT department could access it. The net admins and the system admins in the IT department were also given access to the registry, and they were the only ones that can access that. Help desk personnel in the IT department were also given the ability to reset passwords and to verify DHCP across the network.
As far as our backup, as far as like the fault tolerant, we're using RAID 1, which is mirroring, and I believe you're going to talk about the mirrored volumes.
Break one.
Well,
We're using break one.
part of the-
We're just using RAID 1 then.
Part of the requirement was that all the share folders be set in the daily full and incremental backups, and that it be redundant. So we set a mirror volume on the file server so that all the personal home directories for all the users were saved as mirrors in case one of the drives crashed.
And as Dan just touched on there, is that we did implement a full and incremental backup scheme, doing a full backup weekly and then incremental backups beyond that. Do you want to touch on shadow copies?
Yeah, we enable shadow copies on the file servers, and we also had to install the previous version's client software on the clients so that they could use that service of shadow copies. And that's pretty much how that shadow copy.
And then beyond the shadow copies, we have planned to hire out a third-party source to send off our data on a weekly basis for as a part of our business continuity plan. And then also to have a warm site available in case of another San Francisco earthquake, in which we can travel up to Vegas and have another site ready to go for us.
Okay, one of the requirements was that all network client computers have Windows XP Professional installed on them. We were able to do this directly from the server by using unattended setup and Windows NT.
As far as the installation of the software, we basically created an MSI file through an MSI creation tool. The advantages of using an MSI file allow the system to perform a rollback to its previous state if an installation should fail. We then use group policy to assign OpenOffice and ClamWin antivirus to each user in the domain. This way, the next time the user logs in, they will see the application on their desktop, and it will be installed once the user clicks on it. This is used to avoid network traffic over the network.
All right, and then also, since Microsoft is a bit notorious for letting its users be the beta testers on its updates, we do not want users within the picoplay.crew domain to actually be downloading updates and creating work for the IT department. So we've implemented the WSUS, which is a tool that enables us as administrators to download the updates and then push them out onto the network, as we have felt that they are safe to implement as part of our network.